Shalom and good day all, this is Tehillim29 back again for manga I have recently read through, and as you can see here, I do have some manhwa and manhua in this as well that I've also recently read through. So I'll go through the list of all the manga that I have recently read through and finished between July and August. So one of the first ones, or one of the last ones that I recently finished was The Summer Hikaru Died, which is a very interesting story, and it definitely involves a bit of the supernatural. We have Run on Your New Legs, Volume 5, Lupin the Third, Thick as Thieves, Volume 1. We also have The Monkey Prince, The Complete Odyssey, which has really been good to read through. Of course, The Strange Academy Finals, The American Born Chinese, which is basically an American manhua. This is a manhua as well. Moving into some of the manhwa that I am reading. So we've got The Restorer's Home, which actually reads from left to right, not right to left. Same with The American Born Chinese. We also have The Breaker, Volume 5, which the story has been getting really interesting, and I'm looking forward to when it moves to the next part. We have Blue Lock, which centers around basically soccer, and I really enjoy what the creator of this story has done. We have another manhwa, a Korean story, and that is Fight Class 3 by Lee Hak. Very interesting, and it also gets into a bit of mixed martial arts. Finally, I finished off this series, but not completely. I've still got like another 4 volumes that are connected to this series, which is called Another Fruits Basket. So we've got volumes 10 to 12 there, and it's nice to finally finish this series. Now, this is one series I really enjoyed reading through, and it's called Barefoot Gen, and there's 10 volumes to it overall. And I must admit, yeah, it gets deep, yes, it gets emotional, but it's also addressing a part of Japan's history, linking to when the bombs hit Japan. And of course, you get to follow the character of Chen, members of his family, and you also get to see some of the loss that he goes through, as well as some things that he also becomes an activist against. So he doesn't like the idea of sort of like nuke bombs being dropped on any random place, and that makes a lot of sense too. And last but not least, Trojan X. So I'm going to move back to the very first one, to the last one I just finished, and that is The Summer Hikaru Died. And I must admit, this story, it definitely deals with loss, but it also deals with one of the main characters that you meet in the story, Yoshiki, and his emotions for, or his deep emotions for this character. So in some essence, it's almost like an LGBT story, but there's also more to it. So basically, with him overcoming his loss for one of who he would see as his best of friends. And for this, I will give it an 8 out of 10. That includes for the story and the art. Run on Your New Legs. This has been really good, as you get to see this character running on like a prosthetic leg, and there's sometimes in the story where it does feel a little bit offbeat, but once it finishes going offbeat and back to sort of like where you're meant to be in the story, it continues on really well. So for volume 5, an 8 out of 10. Lupin the Third, Thick as Thieves, Volume 1. My goodness, this has been absolutely fun reading through this first volume. And my goodness, the trickery that this Lupin does, and he can also taunt his enemies, of course. It shows how much of a jerk he can be, but you can also see how resourceful he can be too. So for this, I'll give it an 8 out of 10. The Monkey King Manhua by Chico. I really enjoyed reading through this, as I've also read through as I've also watched through the Monkey series. I'm actually surprised of how much of the Monkey series captured of the history and even of what's the word I'm looking for? The accurate detail in the storytelling to which it captures around this main character. And for that, I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10. Moving into Strange Academy, which has been really good by Scotty Young, an 8 out of 10. American Born Chinese, yes, it does actually bring in some of the things in relation to the Monkey King story. And yes, it does bring in sort of like a little bit of the story into it. You do get a mix between sort of like the planes of the Chinese mythological heaven, as well as what's happening on Earth with the main character. I think for this, I'll give it a 7.5 out of 10. The Restorer's Home, my goodness. Finishing this one off recently, I quite enjoyed what was done here. It reminded me a little bit of, not Yu Yu Hakusho, Shaman King, because in this you have like a student who restores pieces of art, sort of like old important things or old relics, and in some of his encounters in the restoration of these relics, he also has like a supernatural encounter with like maybe people of ancient times who have a connection to that relic, and he's able to like learn things about them, but also help them out too. I really enjoy how the story is brought across, to which I give it an 8.5 out of 10. Really enjoyed it. The Breaker, well, it keeps breaking boards with Volume 5. And yes, there's quite a bit more fighting in here, but there's also a little bit more story too, because you get a little bit more between student and teacher, as well as one of the teacher's, I guess, close friends, to which the student also helps to recover with this particular close friend, to which I'll give it an 8.5 out of 10. Blue Lock, yes, still on this sporting manga. I thought by now I might have ended up dropping this, but considering how interesting this story has been, I give it a 7.5 out of 10. Moving into Fight Class, as I mentioned earlier, this actually deals with a little bit of MMA fighting, or mixed martial arts fighting. And you have this character that's basically invited to go to a bit of a fight class or a martial arts class. And in it, yes, he does end up missing in going in there, but there's still an opportunity to which he can sort of like join and become a part of a group, to which they can earn a title, to which I'll give it a 7.5 out of 10. I hope that by the time that Volume 2 comes out, that it might raise to an 8. Jumping into Fruits Basket, it was really nice seeing the end of what makes up these last volumes, as sort of, and you can certainly feel it within the story that the story is moving towards a conclusion. You do get the conclusion, even though there is more to be coming after this. For it, I give a 7.5 out of 10. Now, I think this one is definitely the gold of the bunch, and that is Barefoot Jen. Now, in this, we follow the character of Jen, and we see what happens to him and his family during the war. There's even a time where you see him with his mother, and he has his sister, and of course things happen there, and he loses his sister. He ends up meeting someone who reminds him of his brother, sort of like in the war or during the time of war. And take note, his parents are very anti-war, or especially his father. Yes, he does end up losing his father, and of course others. About the only ones who sort of like stay alive within the story are basically Jen himself and his oldest brother, and it's really sad. But you do actually get to see the character move on, sort of like from one volume into the next volume and next volume, even doing things to try to survive, considering the conditions to what Japan was put under. Like after the nuclear bomb, to which I got to give this a big 9.5 out of 10. I never thought I would enjoy it as much, and yes, it gets into depth, and I mean into serious depth. And last but not least, moving into Trojan Volume 2, this volume of Trojan Volume 2 definitely took a slightly different direction. We did get to meet some other characters along the way, but still having the main characters there, for which I'll give this particular volume, for both story and art, a 7.5 out of 10. Until then, let's keep it colourful and have yourself an awesome day.